So the face, number 70, February 1986. I had this idea to do a set of pictures to celebrate the 10th anniversary of punk, and commissioned Nick Knight and Simon Foxton to do this cover and a fashion story, which you'll see in the magazine. Punk had started with the Damned single New Rose in 1976. This was my celebration of a 10th anniversary of punk. I was besotted with punk. I was too young to actually go to those gigs, having turned 14 in 1976. I wasn't kind of brave enough to go to those early punk gigs. Beautiful cover, shot by Nick, as I say, styled by the incredible Simon Foxton. We were all kind of very young, straight out of college. In fact, Nick had been at college with this girl, Sarah, and suggested we bring her up for the cover. He said she had this amazing white hair. Of course, she arrived in the studio with black hair, and we had to bleach it to white in the morning. I'm sure all her hair fell out the next day. Beautiful makeup. This was actually Nick's idea. I remember him kind of picking up the dog collar and biting it himself. Anyway, it's become a bit of an iconic cover in itself, and was certainly a lot of fun to do. I'll speak more about it when we come to the shoot. So Neville Brody is still the art director of the magazine. I'm the assistant art director, but kind of having quite a lot of editorial freedom in the magazine to do ideas like this, and still very much working on the kind of face design that Neville had created with having going. I would have commissioned these pictures or their press pictures. At the time, the photography was so important. Here's an incredible set of pictures by Steve Tynan done at the Crush Groove Xmas party in Madison Square Garden. We're kind of still at the beginning of hip hop here. And some of these pictures, whether it's a Run DMC, LL Cool J, were kind of iconic. And nowhere else was really publishing those. Curtis Blow, all these stuff done backstage. A lot of the photography was very much kind of attack photography. You'd send someone along and they'd turn up and shoot these pictures. This is the intro section of the magazine, this logo that I think I did, which was kind of optically compressed type. We're still pre-digital, but there was photo setting at this point. So this was all done with kind of paste up and old school kind of making an artwork for each page. The intro section was very cool, and it was like a kind of compendium of what was going on in culture, at least in a culture relevant to the kind of Face audience at that time. I think at this time, the Face is such an influential magazine. Not that we really knew it, doing it from kind of, London where we did. Interesting, Nick, the editor, we're starting to still exploring lad culture, and this is before he's launched Arena magazine. Fantastic piece by Julie Birchall here, really kind of going into kind of, I think the way that Face wrote about culture really helped to define it. Rather dreary ad for the Wool Secretariat there. Really nice picture of Adam Faith, article by Bob Elms. It wasn't, he wasn't all kind of like young people in nightclubs, he's a 45-year-old Adam Faith here being interviewed in the Face. Dreary Levi's ad. Piece about Stanley Kubrick filming Full Metal Jacket in South London. And here we start my kind of anthem, my kind of, this piece that I'd kind of talked them into doing, which was my 10th anniversary of punk, written by the iconic John Savage, who very much became the chronicler of punk and the punk era, and has done some fantastic books. Subsequently, I'll put some links underneath to his England's Dreaming series of books. And here's this shoot. As I say, Simon Foxton basically did most of the casting. This was apart from this girl, Sarah, which is our cover girl that Nick had brought up from his art school days. I remember Nick had this idea, which I've sort of copied so many times, which is like take a blue background, put blue light on it, take an orange background, put orange light on it, to really saturate these colours. Don't forget, we're shooting transparency at this point. Simon styled this girl. I remember these were kind of iron-on stickers. That's why they're on sort of backwards. And Nick always thought this was lifted, basically, by Jamie Hewitt to be the kind of inspiration for Tank Girl. I'm sure Nick's right. Very much Simon's kind of provocative aesthetic here. And such eclectic styling, from the kind of bar towels to the kind of Wham badge, the kind of Ryman stationery clips, which you see throughout this entire thing. This is William Faulkner, who actually was a London makeup artist, but he just had that look that was right. Simon cast him. Great hair by Kevin Ryan. These were bits of rubber from a kind of retread company. They cut out of tires that I think Kevin had found in the street that we kind of tied into this poor girl's hair. Also, these are kind of metal pattern cutting gloves to stop you cutting yourself when you're kind of cutting patterns, and just this kind of eclectic use of kind of found bits of kind of objects doing it. And, you know, cash if you die, cash if you don't, just headlines pasted on. It's very homemade, if you like, but kind of which was very true to the kind of punk aesthetic in a way. Simon had spent the night before hammering all these studs into these trainers, another bar towel, a bunch of key rings. You've got a kind of lab asbestos pad here. Just bonkers bits and pieces thrown on. It was such fun, and Simon's styling was so kind of innovative, if a little homemade. But that was very much the punk aesthetic. So the article continues with more of a kind of a overview of punk and where that aesthetic was 10 years later. Really nice layout, probably by Neville. On Pet Shop Boys, nice pictures, very much of its time, 86. Oh, this is another venture by me. I was really interested in this idea of the history of the future, like yesterday's, tomorrow's, images of the future from the past, whether it's a futuristic car or a futuristic bus. Kind of like, you know, there was sort of been a sort of 30s, 40s and 50s visions of the future have always kind of inspired me, and still do, frankly, whether it's a vacuum cleaner or a rocket car. I remember visiting the various photo libraries around London, and of course you'd get these on sort of dupe transparencies and things like that. It's like there was no digital online Google to find these pictures. You had to actually go to the libraries and find them. Great picture, nice layout, probably Neville, the Water Boys, super simple. Yeah, this is an article on theatrical madness, The Power of Theatrical Madness by Jan Farb, which had been a huge shot by Robert Mapplethorpe, which I think is why we ran it. It had been a huge hit at the ICA and then came back to Royal Albert Hall in London. I went to see it, 5 hours of non-narrative dance. One of the worst things I'd ever seen. It was a good read, The Face. You know, you've got movie reviews, you've got book reviews by Gordon Byrne, politics by Marek Kohn, music by David Toop. I mean, proper writers doing proper reviews. It wasn't all Buffalo. So there you go. That's one of my favourite issues of The Face. Anyway, probably because it's got such a great cover and such great memories making it. The Face, number 70, February 1986.